I have a question for you. If everything in beauty becomes more sustainable, then is anything really sustainable at all? Because these days it feels like the word sustainable is starting to pop up on every beauty product you pick up. More sustainable packaging, more sustainable formulas, more sustainable choices. And it sounds good. It feels good. But when you pause and really think about it, what does this actually mean? Now, we used to understand sustainability as something serious, something rooted in long-term thinking, responsible resource use, protecting the future. But now the word seems to mean anything vaguely positive or ethical or eco-ish or aesthetic. And we've reached a point where the word sustainable is no longer a commitment. It's now turning into a vibe or a feeling, perhaps even a placeholder for progress, even when the substance behind it is questionable. So in today's episode, I want to ask the question that most people are avoiding, which is, has the word sustainable lost all meaning in beauty? Welcome to Green Beauty Conversations. I'm Lorraine Dallmeier, Chartered Environmentalist, Biologist, and the CEO of award-winning online organic cosmetic formulation school, Formula Botanica. This was part 2 of my 4-part series called The Truth About Sustainable Beauty, where I share the biggest insights that I've gained from hosting this podcast for the last 7 years. I've interviewed hundreds of people all across the cosmetic sector, and I've seen some big patterns emerge, and I plan to share those with you in this short series so that you can see them too. Each episode, I'll tackle one of the uncomfortable truths that the beauty industry doesn't want to face. And in today's episode, we're going to unravel one of the most frustrating questions in the beauty industry today, which is, what on earth does sustainable even mean in beauty anymore? So let's be honest, the word sustainable is starting to become meaningless. It's been stretched, diluted, co-opted, thrown into every type of marketing blurb imaginable. Brands use it to mean eco-friendly or ethical, or green, clean, recyclable, natural, or whatever sounds vaguely positive and marketable. But originally, the word sustainability meant something very specific. It was about systems thinking, long-term viability, intergenerational responsibility. And as a concept, it asks whether what we do today can be continued indefinitely without depleting resources and damaging ecosystems or compromising future generations. And that kind of thinking takes time. It requires what's known as cathedral thinking, so the kind of foresight and ambition that builds legacies, not quick wins. So cathedral thinking is the idea of building something so ambitious, so long-term, that you might not live to see it finished. It comes from an era of medieval cathedral builders who began construction knowing that it would take centuries to complete their cathedrals. And this type of thinking requires vision, humility, and a deep sense of responsibility to future generations. In the context of sustainability, cathedral thinking means designing systems and making decisions not just for quarterly gains or annual impact reports, but for the world we want to leave behind 100 years from now. It's the opposite of quick wins or marketing-led change, and it is almost entirely missing from the beauty industry today. So we see sound bites and taglines, and increasingly this phrase, more sustainable packaging, more sustainable sourcing, more sustainable choices. But we should all be asking, more sustainable than what? Because the terminology has become the go-to way for brands to signal progress without committing to actual definitions or measurable outcomes. And the problem is, it works because shoppers are buying it, literally. Recent consumer research shows that people consistently equate sustainability and beauty with products being natural, ethical, or so-called non-toxic. And that's not necessarily their fault, because brands have trained us to associate this word sustainable with feel-good aesthetics, with soft green visuals and recycled craft paper boxes, and with messaging that sounds responsible but doesn't always stand up to scrutiny. Now, in one large survey conducted on sustainability and beauty, which I even shared here on the podcast back in episodes 203 and 204, consumers ranked that word non-toxic and cruelty-free as their most important purchasing factors. Sustainable packaging came next, and environmental impact was somewhere near the bottom. And what we see here is a blending of ethics and health concerns and sustainability into one giant vague concept. But these things aren't interchangeable, because sustainability is about circular systems and resource use, emissions, waste, biodiversity, water, energy, equity. It's not about whether your product is vegan or made with lavender essential oil. And yet we keep using this word sustainable as a catch-all. And it isn't just the brands doing this either, because consumers want a simple message. They want to feel good about their purchase. And in a world that feels increasingly complex, the word sustainable has become a shortcut. It's a label that signals virtue, even when the details don't always check out. And we saw this with the rise of carbon neutrality claims as well. It all sounds positive until you realize most of those claims rely on offsets rather than actual emissions reductions. And now we're watching the same playbook play out with packaging and sourcing. We hear people talk about sustainable palm oil, sustainable mica, sustainable plastic. These are terms that don't necessarily mean anything unless the systems behind them are robust, third-party verified, and transparently communicated. And I think that the beauty industry has become addicted to this vagueness because it's far easier to mark a more sustainable version of your existing product than to reimagine your entire business model. It's easier to tweak your packaging rather than to rethink your sourcing. It's easier to create a new eco line than to reduce your output. And when we think about the role of consumers, things do tend to get even murkier because the truth is we all want to buy better, but we also all want to buy more. Convenience still wins. Aesthetics still matter. And no one wants to give up the things they love. So brands meet us where we are. They give us just enough information to feel like we're doing something good, and we don't ask too many questions. We typically accept that more sustainable is good enough. But here's what I really want us to ask. Where does that leave us? Because when everything is a bit better, but nothing is actually good, we're just treading water. Sustainability then becomes a marketing aesthetic, not a practice. And the word that once represented deep systemic change now just decorates product labels. So we need to reclaim the word sustainable. That means demanding clarity, asking brands for their definitions, expecting third-party verification, and holding people accountable when their version of sustainability turns out to be more about optics than outcomes. This also means educating ourselves, knowing the difference between ethics and sustainability, understanding what emission scopes are, thinking about waste systems, asking where ingredients come from and what happens to them when we're done with them. Because if we want the beauty industry to change, we have to change with how we engage with it. So here's my challenge to you for this week. Let's all stop treating sustainability like a vibe. If a brand uses the word, make them prove it. And if a product claims to be more sustainable, ask them compared to what? And then go and look for the answer. Because despite all this confusion, I still believe in the power of the word sustainable. Because when it's used properly, it sets the bar high. It challenges us to move beyond marketing, to build something lasting and responsible. And I believe that we can get there. We can reclaim the meaning of this word together by holding the industry and ourselves to a higher standard. Clearer language, bigger thinking, and a real commitment to doing better, not just sounding better. Thanks for listening to this episode of Green Beauty Conversations. This was part 2 of my 4-part The Truth About Sustainable Beauty series. If you enjoyed it, please leave me a 5-star review and share this episode with someone who wants to see the beauty industry do better. And don't forget to visit formulabotanica.com to try our free formulation course and learn how to be part of the change. In the next episode, I'll be asking an even tougher question, which is, can beauty ever be sustainable while it continues to profit from making people feel bad about themselves? I'll see you next week.